Greetings to everybody who's watching this video, and thank you so much for your willingness to serve as a sponsor for a chapter, and for, if you are a director of bands, for what you will do in service for our students of Kappa Kappa Psi. My name is Derek Stoughton, and I am currently at this moment serving as the chair of the sponsor and director task force for the fraternity. And our job is to help create resources and really just be a support system for all of the chapter sponsors and directors of bands who are out there and who maybe have some questions or aren't quite sure, what to do, what's happening in your fraternity, after your chapter, what deadlines do I have to meet, all those kinds of things. And we're hoping that these series of videos will be able to help you and answer any questions that you may have. I'm joined by a couple of my friends who are just wonderful people and who have a wealth of knowledge in our organization. And Arupa, I'm gonna start with you. Would you introduce yourself real quick and just let us know who you are?
Sure. Hi, my name is Arupa Gopal-Campbell. I was initiated into the fraternity in the spring of 2004. I'm originally from the Southeast District, from the University of South Florida, the Kappa Tau chapter, and I'm currently serving as the Southeast District Governor.
Awesome. Mike, you are also here joining us tonight. You'll tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thanks. My name is Mike Napolitano. I am a life member of the Kappa Upsilon chapter at Marist College. For 14 years, I served as their chapter sponsor. And in previous fraternity life, I served as Northeast District Governor and National Vice President for Programs.
That's wonderful. And I'll just tell you a little bit about myself briefly. I am a life member from the Alpha Tau chapter at the University of Texas at Austin, joined in the fall of 2004. I am not as involved and seasoned and knowledgeable as my wonderful colleagues here. I served on our national curriculum committee a couple of years, 4 years ago in 2017, and was fortunate enough to be the chair of that committee from 2019 to 2021. And again, now serving in this role as the chair of the sponsor and director task force. So I know a lot of people, when they first are involved with Kappa Kappa Psi and are like, okay, this thing has been placed upon me as a new director of bands, or, hey, I'm going to be a chapter sponsor. I'm really excited about that because, I had a great time in Kappa Kappa Psi when I was an undergraduate, and now I want to keep serving in the future. And that's all great. And now I'm like, okay, now I have to do this. Now what? Kind of thing. So really, I just want to open it up to my colleagues here who've seen many things across the way. So just from the outset, if you're somebody who's a brand new sponsor or a brand new director of bands, any helpful tips that you might have, or just things that you may need to know, just kind of going into this thing from the beginning? And I'll open it up to anybody. I'll tell you, Mike, well, you've got the green screen.
Sure.
So we're on Zoom because this is we're recording this in the fall of 2022 and we're still in Zoom land. So, so Mike, I guess we'll just start with you.
So I think one of the really interesting things about sponsor and director roles is there's kind of an aspirational ideal of like, yes, I serve in this capacity and really I want to engage with the chapter in so many ways to not just make sure that my band program excels and becomes the best possible band it can be, but I also realize that there are certain programs that the fraternity really tries to instill into its membership that we really want to make sure that they're participating in so that they glean the best experience possible. And trying to strike the balance of finding out, especially when you're new, what steps do I need to take to make sure that I'm hitting those benchmarks for success, but also what am I doing in terms of my obligations to the fraternity to make sure that the chapter is really just hitting the baselines right off the bat. So a lot of it is learning a lot about the administration of the fraternity, what those deadlines are, why reporting structures are, and how they're situated, and making sure that students become proactive planners in that aspect. The role of administering the fraternity operations doesn't fall on the director and sponsor alone, right? Chapters exist at the discretion of the directors, but the actual service and work needs to happen from the students. So how do we build that relationship with our students, and how do we encourage them to be proactive in their planning and their calendaring and their scheduling to make sure that band comes before chapter and chapter serves band?
Yeah, I think that's really, really, really important. Arupa, is there anything you want to add or anything that you could offer?
Yeah, so I I've been serving as the sponsor of the Kappa chapter for several years now. And I think the main thing about a new sponsor or someone who's coming into that director of bands role with regards to the fraternity is it can be somewhat situational, right? Some people come in with a deep knowledge of the fraternity. Maybe they were a member or they were at an institution where it existed already. Some people have sort of a glancing understanding, just seeing it happen around them, and others have no frame of reference at all. So I understand that things can be kind of overwhelming, especially for someone who has no understanding of the fraternity whatsoever. So from my point of view, I think that it's always helpful for someone new in one of these roles to have a basic understanding of the structure of the organization, maybe even a little bit of the history. I do see people having thoughts like, oh, it's a marching band fraternity. And while marching band can be a lot of what a chapter does, it's not all that a chapter supports. So some idea of where it came from, what it's currently doing, and hopefully our resources and these videos can help you glean some of that knowledge without having to do a lot of deep diving on your own. And then talking to the chapter. And I know that sounds like kind of simplistic, but chapters have things that they need and things that they don't really need. And so from my perspective, I think that it's a good idea to just have an idea about what those expectations are, see how you can best help, what they do need help with and what they're okay with. And then, like I said, through these resources, maybe seeing ways you could help expand what they're doing or get experience from other people. And especially if there's administration that's been around as the chapter has been going on, seeing if there are things that they've done well in the past, things they could improve upon, just getting like an overall frame of reference, getting some context as to what this organization does and how it currently and in the past has functioned at your institution. And then seeing if you have thoughts, if the chapter has thoughts about ways to be effective in the future.
Yeah, I think all of that is absolutely terrific. And if I could just add a couple of things to that, I just think when you're first going in, and this may seem like very basic information, but I think a lot of folks sometimes skip these very important steps by just really knowing who is in the chapter, especially if you're brand new at this, like which of, especially if you're at a larger school where there's 200 and 250 students in your band program, you may want to try to figure out, okay, where are the Kappa Kappa Psi members, just so I can start putting names to faces and start figuring out where some of these folks are. I think that's really important. I think knowing, as my colleagues have said, knowing who your leadership team is really important, because those are the folks that are going to really be invested in what we do. Of course, your chapter president, your vice president of membership is going to be really important as we're trying to figure out the next generation of brothers to join our organization. Vice president of service is going to be really helpful. We are a service-based organization, so I think knowing who the contact point is for a lot of those things is really important. So knowing who the leadership team is, knowing their best way to contact them, I think is really, really important too. Some people, a lot of, here we are in 2022, and there's a lot of different ways that chapters communicate with each other, whether it's email or some people use text. A lot of people are going to this game, they're using Discord now or Slack or whatever it is. They probably have invented 10 or 12 other new tools by the time you read this, but this is where we are at this point in our history. So, but just finding the type of tools and ways to connect with your students that is the most important and easiest for them so that they can feel most connected to you, I think is really, 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 really important. Find out when chapter meetings are, go to chapter meetings if you can. Now, we certainly understand that y'all are very, very busy people, and you're a lot of these times this is a volunteer thing that you do. In some cases of the director of bands, this has just been placed on them. But again, that connection is really, really important for those students. And so even if you can go to one meeting every month or once every couple months, just so that they can see your face. And believe me, when you go into the room, the awareness will raise just a little bit and be like, oh, okay, we really need to make sure we're staying on top of our business and that we're staying on top of what we need to do. So again, even if you're just around, and even if you're there to just thank them and just be like, hey, I just wanted to come and say, we appreciate everything that you do. I was fortunate enough to be a director of bands and a chapter sponsor at Southeastern Louisiana University a few years ago before I'm in my current role as a graduate student at the University of Colorado. And I can tell you just that small little, just, hey, I just want you to know how much we appreciate you and thank you for all that you do. Obviously doing that at the chapter meeting is important, but any public recognition that you can do, I think is super important, whether it's in front of the band or at a concert. If you just, hey, we our Kappa Kappa Psi chapter is hosting a reception and we just want to thank them for all that they do. Just every small little thing that you can do to just help them to realize that their work is going noticed and that you really appreciate that, I think is really, really, really important too. In addition to going chapter meetings, knowing kind of how often that those chapter meetings are going on, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is, that's important. Making sure that you have a copy of the calendar for every semester is really important. Even if you just need to pencil it in, I don't know what type of calendars people use these days, but even if you have to pencil it in on your giant whiteboard in your office or something like that, so that way you know when all of the ritual dates are happening, when all of the whatever dates are on your calendar, if there's any recruitment events, those kinds of things, because not only will that help you know what's going on with the fraternity, it will also help you meet some of the deadlines that occur every year. We'll talk about those in a second. So those are just a few things I can think of off the top of my head. Is there anything else that I'm missing that anybody wants to chime in on?
I think it's really important as new sponsors and new directors that may not necessarily be affiliated with the organization, as they develop their rapport with their chapter, I think it's really important that they also get a good understanding of some of our national processes, not just our deadlines on reporting, but what really does our membership education process look like? Why is it standardized across the country, and what is their role in that? How can they participate effectively? And also learning about the tradition through the ritual. That is a really important part of understanding how many of our chapters develop their culture, how they interpret the ritual, and how they live the ritual through their band service. It may seem a little bit strange at first to try to ask the chapter for that kind of deep dive into who we are, but that's also part of our identity. And having an understanding of that really helps the chapter better communicate with the sponsor and director about the why of some of the things that we do. And I think it's really important that that communication about the why goes both ways, right? Students explain the why of why we do certain projects, why they're worthwhile. And directors and sponsors, this is why we act within reason to keep you within those kind of like guide rails.
Well, I think that's great. Arupa, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're brand new, I think I stuck a little bit there. Okay. I think if you're brand new, it's important to understand that there are rituals associated with the fraternity, and those are only for members. And so in all likelihood, if you're a new sponsor or director of bands who's not a member already in some capacity, that your chapter is likely to make you so. And then you can hopefully attend, spend some time learning about all of that and see what it's like from that ritualistic standpoint. And that's another great way to get a good amount of knowledge about who we are and what we do, and as mentioned, the why.
Right. And we're certainly not suggesting that you have to go and read the entire book to know that all of our dates and all that kind of good stuff. We're certainly not saying that you have to, become an encyclopedia of the fraternity, but just the small little things. And again, going through the ritual and seeing just how everything can be connected together. And so that way, when things are going well, you can connect that to our students. And if things aren't going so well, you can say, hey, we talked about this in our most sacred tradition. So what are you doing, and just, using those as teachable moments. I think that that's really, really, really important too. I also want to point out that, and we're just covering some very basic things here. I think it's very important to make you all aware of just a very, very important resource, or two very important resources that will help you. A great way to start, if you ever have a question, is to go to our national website, which is kkpsi.org, and you can see that link on the video screen below. That's got all the information that you will need for a lot of the things that we do. And we also have a sponsor and director page, which is dedicated specifically for your needs. And you'll find that right on our homepage. I think it's, as of this recording, it's the second one over, but it's on the front part of the page. So you can just see it. Just click there, and it's got a lot of information there about some FAQs, about all the deadlines that you'll need to make for chapter initiation reports and new member initiate reports and all that stuff. You can find all those deadlines right there. So all that information is there, and just a number of resources that are always constantly being updated as we get new information in, which kind of is a segue to the second part there. So if you have a specific question, or if there's a part of the FAQ that just you think would be really helpful, we want to hear from you. Our job is to serve and to help you. You know, we're all here because we love this organization, and we want to make sure that you and your students are having the best possible experience. So you can send an email to sponsorsdirectors@kkpsi.org, that email address right there on the bottom of the screen, and we will get back to you within 24 hours. So you don't need to worry about that. We get a notification when an email is sent to us. You can also fill out a request form or a question form on the sponsor and director page, and we get an email when somebody has asked a question. And we, you know, all of this committee does a great job of getting back to people within 24 hours. So just know that somebody will read your question and will get back to you as soon as you possibly can. So I know this may seem like a lot, and we've kind of thrown a lot at you at all at once, but these are just a few helpful small little tips that we think can help. Is there anything that I'm missing, or any final words from my colleagues that you would like to add?
As our new sponsors and our new directors start to get themselves a little bit more aware of what the fraternity does and how we do the things we do, there are a couple of things that I think are really important to know, especially for sponsors that don't come from the world of higher ed. And that happens sometimes. Policies are important. There are times where students act like students, and we need to make sure that we are meeting them where they are, but also bringing them to the next possible level of the greatest potential they can reach. The policies of the fraternity exist so that students can avoid making some risky decisions. Avoid risk at all costs, and that's why we have policies in effect. But for sponsors that necessarily or aren't necessarily a part of a higher ed community, you do want to become accustomed and become knowledgeable on your campus policies. Sometimes as a sponsor or director, you might be called in to mediate conflict. And if you have a better understanding of what college policies are, your institutional policies are, you can often guide students in the right direction to find resources to help mediate some of those issues. So aside from the fraternity policies that keep our students safe and in that space, also be as knowledgeable as you can on what your institutions do to keep your students safe and in line as well.
Yeah, and as a fraternity, we always defer to to campus policies before our own policies. So just know that we will always support whatever decisions is made on the campus first. And also know that we do have resources at the national level should you need them. And again, you can go to the contact information to contact our national headquarters, and they will be able to provide you with additional resources should you ever need them. Or if you're ever not sure if you need them, please do not hesitate to either contact us or contact your national leadership. We are there, and they are there for those specific needs where things may get a little crazy, a little hairy. So
no chapter, no sponsor, no director, no one is an island in this organization.
Correct.
We are a network of people that help support each other through all different levels and strata of who we are.
That's wonderful. Arupa, do you want to add anything?
So mostly I just want to say thank you at this stage for serving in this capacity, for having the interest in the fraternity and wanting to support our students in their endeavors. We understand that fraternity business can get time consuming, can get complicated. We try to encourage our students to keep things as balanced as possible. And so we're hopeful that you all will help us monitor that on your campus to make sure that students are having a happy, healthy, safe experience while also fulfilling the duties of Kappa Kappa Psi. So thank you so much. And like was mentioned, we defer to your knowledge and your understanding on your campus 9 times out of 10. And those of us district governors, the national leadership, we rely so heavily on the sponsors and directors of bands to help us be effective on each campus. And so we're there to support you. Know that you have nothing to worry about from us trying to intervene or be on your campus level for any reason. We are only here to provide support. And so if there's anything at all that you need, we're always here for you. And thanks again.
I think that's a great way to end. So speaking for Arupa, and I know for Mike as well, we just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. And as Arupa mentioned, thank you so much for your willingness to serve our organization. We couldn't do what we do without you. We wish you the best of luck. And again, please let us know if there's anything we can do to support you in the future.